Welcome to Valley Girls, the weekly podcast where we explore everything there is to see, do, try, eat, and experience in New York's Hudson Valley by talking to the makers, the doers, the growers, the creators, and all the unique voices of the Hudson Valley. We're telling the Hudson Valley story one episode at a time. I'm Jenny Leifer, a lifelong Hudson Valley resident. I love talking about health and wellness, finding the best gluten-free eats in the Hudson Valley, and giving back to the community through volunteerism and service.
And I'm Jennifer Santiago, a Hudson Valley native who spent the past 20 years living in Texas. I'm currently splitting my time between Texas and the Hudson Valley as I'm in the process of moving back full time. And I am so excited to explore and rediscover everything I love about the region, including hiking, history, and the local arts and literary scene. Welcome to episode 5 of Valley Girls Podcast. The 5th episode feels like a milestone, so we decided to do something a little different. We're going to tell you all about our recent adventure, but first, in honor of our 5th episode, we're also sharing our first ever bonus episode. In that bonus episode, Jenny, you talked to somebody without whom we might not be celebrating our 5th episode at all, right?
Yes, a few months ago, when we were just baby Valley Girls with just a podcast dream in our hearts, we had a meeting with Jean Morris, who is a certified business advisor with the Mid-Hudson Small Business Development Center, and she was so helpful. She gave us so much great advice to help us establish Valley Girls Media and turn our dream into reality. The Mid-Hudson Small Business Development Center, the SBDC, is part of a network of small business development centers all over New York State. And the services are absolutely free, but the assistance is priceless.
Yeah, Jean is really a gem, and I'm so happy that you had the idea of reaching out to her when we were first getting started. So for anyone even thinking about starting a small business here in the Hudson Valley, go and check out that episode. It's audio only. It will save you time, money, and aggravation.
For sure. So you were in town a couple weeks ago, Jen, and we did some stuff. Actually, we did a bunch of stuff, and it was so fun. It was nonstop action, and we can't even fit it all into a single episode, but we hit on the perfect day trip. We had a blast in Beacon.
We did. So we were when we were thinking about what kind of day trip we wanted to do, we were thinking about who our listeners are, right? So when we first started our podcast, we had some advice to come up with sort of the avatars of who you imagine your ideal listeners are. And one of those categories, I always think of my friend Corrigan. Hey girl, hey. So Corrigan she's from Texas, and she's been living in the city for about 3 years. She loves to go explore new things, try new things, but she's a city girl. She doesn't have a car. And so she hasn't done a ton of exploring, upstate in the Hudson Valley. I think she did an apple picking excursion. So Beacon and Cold Spring. We also talked about Cold Spring, which we got to get there because there's a lot of stuff I want to do in Cold Spring. I'm dying to go to Split Rock Books and the Cold Spring Cheese Shop. So next time we'll do Cold Spring. But it's super easy to get to them on the Metro North. So go to Grand Central, hop on the train, you're in Beacon, and everything that we did, we didn't necessarily walk all of it, but everything we did is walkable. So if you don't have a car and you want to hop on the train, you can get off at the Beacon train station, start from there, and there's a ton of stuff to do. I had not been to Beacon in years and years, and I was so impressed with how vibrant and hoppin' the whole area is.
Really is, yeah.
We drove, obviously, from home in Hurley, and we started out at the train station. And from the train station, you can walk along the river on a really nice path to Dia Beacon, which is an art museum gallery that I've always heard of. It was my first time going there, and we loved it. What did you like about Dia especially?
I like Dia for a number of things. I mean, first of all, it's Dia Art. For anyone interested, diaart.org. I highly recommend checking out their website. It is a number of different galleries and museums, and we are really fortunate to have one of them right here in the Hudson Valley in Beacon. But the architecture, the idea that it was designed out of a former Nabisco box printing factory that right on the banks of the Hudson River. I thought that was so cool. But it's really the programs that they have. They have public programs, they have education programs, they have so many great exhibits. They have this great little bookshop, all of the things, and it really helped transform. Dia was one of the first museums and galleries that helped transform Beacon into this vibrant arts destination that it is now. So to get visitors to come from all over, including New York City and beyond, but it's a 300,000 square foot factory that was built back in the 1920s, I believe, from Nabisco. And it was a, it was a site that was really a mainstay of Beacon. And now to have it transformed into this beautiful site for art, for me, is just, I love that. It's miraculous. The art itself is more modern art. It was, I think it's basically from anything from like 1960s to present. And the artist who sort of developed the architecture to transform this space, this Nabisco factory, into a museum. His name is Robert Irwin, and there is actually one of the exhibits within the museum is a Robert Irwin exhibit as well. But he's the one who conceived the master plan for this 21st century museum. So I think it's a really cool idea. There's a lot of use of natural light. The art exhibits themselves that I really loved. Upstairs, the Louise Bourgeois exhibit, the sculptures. If you check out our Instagram page and you see the awesome reel that Jen made with the spider sculpture, that was like one of our favorites.
With her, I want that spider.
I know. It reminds me of a very dear friend. Her work reminds me of my dear friend Colleen's father, Denny Connors, was a brilliant sculptor, and her work so often reminds me of Denny's work. And so not only do I love her work, but it also just has a special place in my heart because it reminds me so much of Denny's work. But yeah, there's something about it. So I love her work. There is also an Andy Warhol exhibit there that was really fantastic. And it's just so
funny
cool
because we didn't even hit on that until we were getting ready to leave, and then we peeked into this last room and we're like, oh, this is a whole gallery of Warhol.
It was wild. I know. We did. And I was like, this looks like, this is Andy Warhol stuff. So yeah, it was really cool. But yeah, just the way that they work with light and the whole interior space, and doesn't even get into the outside space because they're redoing the landscaping, right? Like I know you were really into having to go take the pictures in the spaces we weren't supposed to be in. You didn't break in, but
I didn't do that. I didn't do that.
You didn't.
I love, you're so right about the building. I mean, obviously they put together this space with an artist's eye because the scale of the space goes so well with the scale of some of the pieces.
Yeah.
I love large scale art. I love like land art. So I really liked some of the big pieces that just go so perfectly in there with the huge windows. And the one that I said, oh, I don't know, but that looks like a giant hunk of cheese to me. And the docent was like, well, you're not wrong. It's coated in wax. And so, and some of the things are so big that as the docent was explaining to us, they actually created them within the space. They weren't brought there. They were made for that space. So when you're like, wow, this really works in here, it's because that was all intentional. So that was a great place. And also you like the little cafe too. That was really cute. Their bookshop is great, and the cafe was great.
The bookshop was really cool. I mean, it had a lot of books from various artists, but it also had a whole section of kids' art books. And my favorite was, of course, the section on all books having to do with the Hudson Valley, of course. And we saw
some friends there who we're going to have on the show next week.
Yeah, sneak peek. We did see some friends' books there as well. But the cafe was great. It's an offshoot of Homespun Foods Cafe, which is actually on Main Street, which we'll talk about in a minute. But they have a spot right on Main Street, and then they also have this cafe right in Dia. So it was really great. They, of course, gluten-free. So they have some gluten-free yummy stuff and teas and coffees, and it was just a cool little spot right next to the bookshop. So very cool stuff. Yeah,
Yeah. So
neat
so
stuff.
after we did Dia, which is how we kicked off our day, which was great, then we headed up to Main Street. Main Street is really the main drag. So we were driving. Also, it was really cold that day, and I'm a baby. But there is a loop bus in Beacon that's free and it's kind of hop on, hop off. So if you have come up from the city, or even if you, I don't know, you came from Poughkeepsie, you don't feel like driving, you just took the train, which is super easy to do, then there is a way to get around all of the kind of hot spots in Beacon without a car. It's totally doable. So yeah, we headed up to Main Street, and we'll be honest, we didn't even get to all of the things we wanted to do on Main Street. It's about a mile of that stretch there, and it is just lined with shops and cafes and fun stuff to do. But we loved everything we did.
We really did. And I'm sorry, just to backtrack, because obviously I love Dia so much. One thing I wanted to point out to our listeners, if you are from Beacon and Newburgh, if you are residents of Beacon and Newburgh, admission is free. If you're members of Dia, it is free admission. And also, they have something very cool for all of our listeners. They have Hudson Valley residents receive free admission to Dia Beacon on the last Sunday of every month. So if you are a Hudson Valley resident in any of the counties that encompass Hudson Valley, last Sunday of every month, definitely check that out because it is free. So
I,
anyway,
did, I didn't
uh,
even know that because you paid for my admission. Thank you.
you're welcome. Um, so yes, Main Street was just so great. It's walkable. We parked right at the beginning of Main Street and started on our journey, and it was so accessible and it was a little chilly that day. It was definitely a bit windy and chilly, but it was so nice, and walking through the areas of more of like the art district and seeing some of the galleries. Unfortunately, the time and the day that we walked through, a lot of the galleries were closed, but some of the shops were just so fantastic. Um, I will just say, for me, I didn't get to walk up and down the entire Main Street, although I think it's just about a mile one direction. So if you walked up one side and then walked back down the other, it's maybe 2 miles total. Um, I have a disability, so walking is a little bit difficult for me to walk too far, but it was very, very easy walk. So the first shop I want to say we went into was Utensil Kitchenware, right?
Yes, yes, and we were drooling over everything. We're both suckers for
Everything.
kitchen goods, and this was
Oh,
beautiful.
I wanted everything in there. I think my favorite thing was like the little miniature colander thing that was just like, I don't know why. I was just obsessed with it. I just wanted that so badly.
It was all
Um,
unique little pieces, like little serving dishes. One thing that I liked is I noticed that towards the back, they had a small section of ingredients, and they had some of the harder to find King Arthur things.
yes.
I noticed that they had
Mhm.
the Swedish pearl sugar, which is very specific. You need it for those cardamom buns, and it's not easy to find that kind of sugar. So they had some of that unique stuff that is, otherwise you're going to have to order it from the internet and wait 7 days to get it, and you can't just have a spontaneous baking moment.
Right. If you haven't already checked out our episode 2 with Enrica Martin from, I was going to say One and Only Cakes. That was her, The Sweet Spot from
Mm-hmm.
One and Only Cakes. Definitely check that out. But as you can see, we are huge foodies, especially baked goods. And so that store, Utensil Kitchenware, was like a dream for us.
Yep.
So then we continued up Main Street. And I think our next stop was Flora Good Times, right?
I wanted to live in that store.
You
It
did.
was
You did.
just
It was great.
the whole vibe was so good. Beautiful cut flowers, arrangements, little cute things for your garden. We talked to the manager there, and she was so lovely, which I feel like I would be so lovely too if I got to just work in that shop all day. And she had her tunes playing, and she had beautiful flowers everywhere. So yeah, that was gorgeous. Houseplant
But
stuff,
But you get to work with me, so,
even even
there's
better.
that,
You know.
right? That's what I'm
Yes.
saying.
You're like a beautiful houseplant with a really good
Aw,
personality.
that's so cool, thanks. But no, it really was. It was such a cool little place, very small, little narrow, plant shop, but very unique plants, and unique little tchotchkes for your plants and just cool little things. I liked it. Very
Yep.
cool place. And always makes me like the kitchen store, makes me want to be like, I want this to be my life. I want to be a baker and I want to have this be
Yeah.
my life and I want all these kitchen things. And then like I'm in the plant store and I'm like, I want to be a, green thumb and I just want to have plants all over my house. And yes, so
They also
really
had a whole display of seeds from Hudson Valley Seed Company,
oh
which
right,
I've
right.
been obsessed with for years. Adams also sells all the Hudson Valley Seed Company things, and we got to get them on the podcast because not only so Hudson Valley Seed Company's Instagram is great. They do a lot of really
Yep.
practical tips about gardening and growing things from seed, but they also every single one of their seed packets, they commission an artist, a local artist, to do a unique packet for each thing, and then there's information about the growing and about the artwork. So anyway, they had a whole display of those. So I knew I loved it as soon as we walked in.
Yeah, it was really great. Um Trying to think. So we keep walking up Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
I know there was a few other shops along the way that we will mention, and we'll definitely put in our blog post
Yeah,
about that we
it was
didn't
a
get to.
Monday morning and we were still kind of early, so not everything was
Yeah,
open. Some of the stuff opens at 11 or noon. Some things are closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. So, always a good tip if you're going to go try to do this day trip, make sure all the stuff you want to go to is open. So, for example, we didn't go in Scarborough Fair, which is
oh
called the
right, that
Olive
was one.
Oil and Vinegar Tap Room, and I could drink olive oil by the
And
glass.
they do tastings there, and I love that. There's a place up in Saratoga as well that I love that does that. And I'm always a sucker. So whenever I do olive oil and vinegar tastings, I'm buying some and bringing some home. So,
Yep. Yep. So we
um,
didn't make it there, but we will. There was also that little knitting shop that you loved that
oh,
was
I
not open.
know.
It was, what was it called? Beetle and Fred, Fabrics, Notions, and Classes was the
I
name
think
of it.
something like that. Yes. Yes. So cute. So my mom is in addition to being the best challah baker around, she is
Word.
also a fantastic knitter and has knitted unbelievable things. Just scarves and sweaters and blankets, and both my twins and my nephew, she and both of my nephews and my twins, she knitted all of the yarmulkes for all of the bar and bat mitzvahs. And she is right now, it's so cute, she is knitting a blanket for one of my nephews from the leftover yarn from his bar mitzvah. So he's going to have
Aw.
a blanket made from the same yarn that was from his bar mitzvah. But anyway, so I tried actually, it was during COVID that I tried getting into knitting, and she was teaching me how to knit because, you had to learn new things and find things to do during COVID. Right. And I kind of got into it a little bit. I, have some issues with my joints. And so it was a little tough on the joints to do, but I did get into it. But then I found crocheting, and it's a little easier because you only have the crochet hook in one hand. So for me, it was a little bit easier to do. I mean, you use both hands, but you don't need the needles in both hands. And I love it. So I took off with crocheting, and I just love crocheting more than like blankets and things. Those adorable little crochet animals, I'm just like obsessed with making those. So yeah, I saw that shop and I was like, oh my God, I got to get back down here with my mom because I can't wait. So that was really great.
The
Yeah.
other one we didn't make it into that I really wanted to go to was called Notions and Potions. It's a magic shop, and they had all kinds of crystals and
Yes.
tarot decks, and they do readings, and that is so my jam. And listen, while we're here and it's Aries season, I'm just going to put it out there. I am manifesting the guest that I most want to get on this podcast is Hillary Burton Morgan, because I love her so much. I just finished reading Grimoire Girl, which is her memoir and her book, and she talks a lot about, it's her grimoire that she's put together of recipes and herbal remedies, and she talks about how when she was a teenager growing up, she was in Virginia, and there were two sort of magic shops, the kinds of things that I grew up going to in Woodstock all the time. And I've always been a sucker. I
Mm-hmm.
cannot walk into a crystal shop without buying something, as you know, because we will talk about the Tibet Tree of Life in Beacon. So how it was, she had a very religious family, and she kind of had to sneak away and go to these mystical shops when she wanted to get her
Mm-hmm.
supplies. And so my dream podcast interview is getting Hillary to come on and tell us about all of the witchy shops and the crystals and the evil eye amulets and all the things that she loves about the Hudson Valley. So putting it out there, Hillary, I'm waiting for you. So but yes, so we
That was
did go
very
to
cool.
Tibet Tree of Life, which is a crystal shop, and they have incense, and I will post some pictures of that. I have some beautiful
Beautiful
pictures.
clothing too. Remember like all the beautiful clothing they had?
Yes,
Oh, it
yes.
was a very cool, and jewelry, and just it was gorgeous. Yeah.
And of course, when
My
I got
kind of
my
jewelry.
handful of crystals at the end, when I paid for them, she put them all in the singing bowl and she
Singing
chimed
bowl.
them to charge up my crystals for me. So
Mhm.
that was a fun shop. So
Yeah, it was had like my kind of like big chunky rings and dangly earrings and stuff. I love it. It was very, very cool place.
I got a
Um,
haul there. Whenever I travel, I always end up with rocks and books. So when people are helping me with my suitcase in the plane, they're like, "What's in
they
this
love you.
suitcase?
Mhm.
Rocks?" I'm like, "Yes, actually.
Literally, yes. That's
Literally, it's full of
exactly.
rocks and books."
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Mhm. And I was about to say that you were like a kid in a candy store, but you were literally a big kid in a candy store because one of the next places we went was Alps Hudson Valley,
Yes.
which is amazing and delicious. And here
Yeah.
I am trying to avoid sugar. And then we went into a candy store.
How'd
So
that
it all
how'd
went
that work
together.
out for you?
Yeah.
You were strong until you saw the freeze dried Skittles, and then it was
Oh my
over.
God. I know. I hope Teresa, my dietitian's not listening right now. No, it was really great. It was like, seriously, who would have thought, right? Freeze dried Skittles. I know. I don't even eat Skittles anymore, but I had to get them and try them. And they were pretty cool. But they have chocolates and all sorts of delicious things. I don't know. It was all
Rows
so
and
good.
rows of homemade chocolates.
Oh, those
I
homemade peanut butter cups, remember?
Yes, they were
With
so
the
soft. The
ooey
peanut butter
gooey.
was like so creamy and perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I got a chocolate smothered devil dog. So all of the Drake's cakes, like Devil Dogs and Funny Bones, those taste like my childhood, and that is something I cannot get in Texas. We don't have any Drake's cakes. We have some Entenmann's, not all the good stuff necessarily, and we get Hostess, obviously, but there's no Drake's cakes here. So I was very excited about the chocolate covered Devil Dog, and it did not disappoint.
Mm,
So they had lots of
yeah.
unique stuff, and they were making everything there on site. So yes, Alps Hudson Valley is definitely worth a visit.
And then you needed to kind of like work off all that sugar. So then you went to a really super health food store called Glazed Over, I think it was. Is that?
Glazed over donuts. It is
Mm.
so brilliant. It was that was a donut. Let me tell you. Okay, it was two donuts. I'll put up my pictures of them. But so when you go in, so first of all, the shop is just really really cute, and
It is cute.
they had a plaque that I think was from Yelp, and it was like one of the most photographed local places that people post pictures of on Yelp because it's really really cute in there, and the food is beautiful. But so you get a menu and you pick what kind of glaze you want on your donut, and there's tons of choices. I think I have a picture of the menu. I'll put it up. So you can pick your glaze, you can pick your toppings, and then you can pick whether or not you want any drizzle. So I did one that had a honey glaze and had almonds on top, and then I did one that was I think I had a chocolate and Nutella one with pretzels on top because I
Mm-hmm.
love that
Mm-hmm.
sweet and salty crunch. But so there's no donuts sitting there. It's not like when you walk into, a donut shop and you point out the ones that look good. You are coming up with it. They make it to order. And when it came, it was still hot. And I said, this tastes like the best fried dough from the Dutchess County Fair. And this might sound weird, but foodies will know what I'm talking about. You can tell when somebody's using fresh frying oil versus when somebody's using the old frying oil that they've just been using over and over. And I could tell this was fresh frying oil. It was fresh and hot, and they knew exactly what they were doing when they fried that donut. And I regret nothing.
And while I was super jealous, I will say that's when I was like, okay, I'm actually glad that I can't eat that because I have to eat gluten free, and because I would have probably gotten two myself because
Yeah,
they
they
smelled
did
amazing.
not have any gluten free
They
selection,
did not. They did not.
but
But I lived vicariously through you. Hmm.
yes, well, and you ate your freeze-dried Skittles. But
I
that's
did. I
okay
did.
because shortly after that, we stumbled upon something that made you very happy you had not filled up on donuts.
Oh, I was so happy. We went across to the Hudson Valley Food Hall. And while it was interesting because none of the booths were open except for one, which was El Nica Spot, it was all Nicaraguan food. This guy who just makes the most delicious, fresh, everything on the menu, 100% gluten-free Nicaraguan food. It was incredible. So I got, and I know you have pictures of it that you posted recently, right? It
Yep.
was taquitos, and I got these plantains, the sweet maduros, the sweet plantains, and he put this crema and queso on top, and oh my God, my
It
mouth
was
is
like a
watering right now.
chipotle crema.
Oh, the chipotle crema. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I can't. It was
And then he
so
had that
good.
purple cabbage, the red cabbage
The
slaw.
slaw on top of the taquitos were like, I think there was chipotle in that as well, but it
Yeah.
was like such an amazing flavor. I'm not a huge, I like some slaws. I will, but I'm very picky about the slaws, and that was the best slaw I've ever had, hands down,
I
ever.
love a slaw.
I yes, I don't like it when it's like too vinegary or
Mm.
whatever, and this was like the best slaw ever. So, it was also just such pretty food, like colorful food, and it made you want to
Yes.
eat it. And yeah, so definitely check out El Nika Spot. And we definitely already have a post up about that on our Instagram page.
Like we talked about last time, it was such a treat for you to go and see the
Yeah,
menu that said all items are gluten free. So you could literally have anything instead of, the usual where you're like, okay, I can substitute the gluten free toast for $2 or whatever. And actually, you put up a reel that we already got some really good feedback on, asking for other suggestions for gluten free in the Hudson Valley. So you've been at this for a while with your celiac diagnosis, more than 10 years ago now.
yeah, about 12 years
So
ago. Yeah,
you know how to find things, and you know the places that do some substitutions or that have a separate
sure.
fryer for the gluten free. But it was just such a treat to go, and you're like, I can have literally anything on that menu. I don't have to ask him if they use a separate fryer or a separate toaster or whatever. And so you put out a call for other ideas along those lines. And so on next week's episode, you'll summarize some of our findings and your wish list for places that you're going to go check out more gluten-free foods.
Yeah, definitely. So anybody else, please share. You can either add to the post on Instagram or Facebook, or just message us. It's really, I'm a big foodie. I love all kinds of foods. Obviously, there are certain ethnic foods that lend itself to be a little bit more naturally gluten free, because a lot of Latin American foods, other than flour tortillas, there's really not a lot of gluten in those foods naturally. Even other foods you wouldn't expect it, but like Indian food. Indian food is a huge one for me, because most of even like the yummy appetizers that I love are made with chickpea flour, so I can
Mm-hmm.
have those. So yeah, I mean, so ethnic foods is a big one for me. I love Italian food. So, but now that there are some really delicious gluten-free pastas out there, there's some really great places doing that. We went, actually, I know it's New York City, but Jen and I actually went to a delicious Italian restaurant in New York City that was 100% gluten free, Senza Gluten. And it was great because, I mean, the bread that comes to the table and the everything, the dessert, the pasta, everything, I didn't have to question, how anything is made. So those are great. So
But
obviously,
I loved it too. I eat
right. That's a
gluten,
good
but
point.
I
That's a good
had
point.
zero complaints when we were at Senza Gluten. I was also very happy, and I am an Italian food snob, and I had no problems there.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. So when it's done well, it's not like, oh, it's good enough for those gluten-free people, right? Like it's just good food, period. And gluten-free people can enjoy it. But so whether it's a restaurant that is 100% gluten-free, which is hard to find, and that's okay, or at least a restaurant that has a good amount of gluten-free options, as I joke around about, like something other than just a salad. I mean, I like salads and all, but sometimes you get a little tired of saying like, well, we have a salad. So if they have anything in addition, definitely drop us some suggestions. That would be great. There is a place which I'm very sad we did not make it to, because I didn't get to walk all the way down to the end of Main Street, so I didn't realize that I was missing this until it was too late. But Kitchen and Coffee is a great 100% gluten-free, I believe vegetarian, free, fair trade coffee and tea, all natural, locally sourced cafe and bakery. So anybody else, any of my other GF foodies out there, definitely check out Kitchen and Coffee. And it is on my list for the next time I get to Beacon for sure.
Yeah, we
So,
got to go back because there's other stuff I need too. I loved that food hall, and while you were so happy with El Nica, and that was all delicious and fresh and
mhm.
beautiful, there were a lot of other places that weren't open because it was Monday and it was early. But there's a taqueria in there. There's a Southern soul food place. There's a cocktail bar. The one I really wanted to hit up is called Moorish, and it's
Mm.
British food, and they have Bakewell tarts and scones with clotted cream. So on our next trip to Beacon, I will be hitting that up. But I was just really impressed with the food hall because I love a food hall. I love to be able to dip in and try different stuff from lots of different places. And
Mhm.
in that way, it's like a very upscale food court. There really is something for
Yeah.
everybody. If I want
Yep. That's
scones and you
exactly
want a
it.
taquito and, somebody else with us wants some fried chicken, you can do all of that in the same place. And
Mhm.
there was great space to sit. It's a former movie theater that was called the Roosevelt, and it was actually known for doing all the creature features and horror movies of the day. So in the bathroom, it's plastered with all the old horror movie posters, and there's a big poster of The Blob, which is a very formative movie for me as a child. I loved The Blob. So anyway, I loved everything about that food hall. So we need to go back. We need to hit it up on like a Thursday night or a Saturday
Yeah.
morning or something when everything's open, and we just need to eat our way through it.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. But there were other great places. So, one of the places, which is a highlight of Beacon, which I know is a pretty well known place, is Hudson Beach Glass. Very cool stuff. We went on a day that they weren't doing any glass blowing at the moment that we were there, but you can actually go and watch them. They have times that you can, I don't even know if you need to sign up for it, right? I think they just have set
I
times.
think you can watch a demonstration, but you can also
Demonstration.
sign up and take lessons,
That's what I was thinking
which
of,
I
right,
don't
that
feel like
right.
I should be trusted with
I
anything
don't
about
think
that,
so
the
either.
heat, the glass, but it's beautiful. There were some gorgeous creations
Yeah,
in there. And, that's a really unique kind of day out, maybe something you would do on a date. So it was very cool. And everything in there was gorgeous. I mean, when we walked in, we were kind of towards the end of our day, and I was tired, and I was like, I don't feel like I should even be allowed in this shop because
I
everything was
know.
so beautiful and delicate, but they were very sweet and lovely in there.
They really were. It was beautiful pieces, though. I mean, they had, like, the typical like, they had vases and they had, clocks and other things, but they had this most intricate, beautiful jewelry and little tiny box. Oh, it was just gorgeous stuff. Absolutely beautiful. And then probably one of our favorite places of the
Hmm.
day was Witch Hazel. And shout out to Jill,
Obsessed.
the owner. We are
Jill
complete.
is going to be on the podcast because we were walking and we were kind of spent. We'd been walking around a long time and it was cold, and we started out early and we were heading towards the car. And outside the shop, which is just so cute, you could just tell it has good vibes. The sign says, "Oh, it smells so good in there." And she was like, attributed it to like every customer who walks into the shop. So I was like, all right, that's my kind of place. We got to go in. We opened the door and I was like, oh, it does smell so good in here. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it was amazing, and they had a little bit of everything. It was like part apothecary, part perfumery, part, like some home goods stuff. The all the makeup that she had in there, everything, first of all, everything she had in the shop is all from local Hudson Valley businesses. So the natural makeup, the natural perfumes, everything is all natural. And it's all sustainable. So like even the makeup came in, nothing was in plastic. Everything came in sustainable, either
refillable, those refillable
refillable,
lipsticks.
reusable. Yep, the refillable lipsticks. I loved that, and all the ingredients were really great, healthy ingredients. But I just love that they're all from businesses right around here. So yeah, the candles. Oh my God, the candles! Everything was just to die for. So,
Yep. I
um,
got a candle there for my mom. It's called Catskill Mist. It was really good.
mm,
Some of the stuff was she said she sourced from the city or Brooklyn, like that
okay.
migraine line.
Mhm.
But yes,
Oh, that's right,
all
that's right.
all New York State stuff, all really thoughtful, all so good smelly. Plus, she does floral arranging and offers classes there with dried
Mhm.
florals. So we loved Jill. We fell in love with her and Witch Hazel pretty hard, and she's going to come on and talk more about that. But yes, I would go all the way back to Beacon just to go to Witch Hazel because it was a beautiful, beautiful shop.
I agree. I agree. So that kind of it got really, really cold after that, if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
So we were kind of on the way back to the car after that. And we sort of drove through the rest of Main Street, which is how I missed Kitchen and Coffee. But I'll be back. But we afterwards, we were not just quite through with Bacon yet, and we had to check out Madame Brett Park. So you can talk a little bit more about Madame Brett because you walked around and saw a little bit more of it.
Yeah, I was cold and I was flagging, but Madame Brett Park is super cool. It is owned and managed by Scenic Hudson, so it's free outdoor space. So it was there's a building there. It was originally a grist mill, and then it was a hat factory, and
Sweet.
now it is a ruin with lots of spectacular graffiti on it. And I love graffiti. I love street art. I love a ruin. I relate to that. It was crumbling, but it was still noble. It was still trying. But it's this beautiful old crumbling brick hat factory, and it goes right along. I think is it the Sawkill Creek? I might be wrong. Don't at me if I'm wrong. But it goes right along this waterway, and there is a trail that goes through the woods, and there's a walkway that's built out along the side of the old factory, so you can see it and you can take pictures. I will post some of my pictures and video from that, but also on the Scenic Hudson website, they have a great video. And so I'll post that on our blog so you can check it out. So I didn't do the whole hike around there, but that was super cool. And we love a free outdoor space. That's a little
Mm-hmm.
quirky. So, perfect day would be going and getting some donuts at Glazed Over or some gluten-free stuff at Kitchen and Coffee, and then going down there and eating at the park and taking a little wander around. And you didn't get out and walk with me because it was
Right.
cold and you were kind of done for the day. But the walkway that goes, probably not the trail through the woods, but the walkway that goes along the side of the old factory, I think would be
Mm-hmm.
accessible, probably even for a wheelchair. It was kind of built out like a boardwalk. So, some of that would be accessible for people of any ability level. So I loved that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that I think that sometimes I know that I fall into this. I don't know, I can't speak for, everybody has their own journey with disabilities and chronic pain. But, sometimes, it's easy to fall into well, I really can't go out. I can't do things. I'm just going to kind of stay home, because I'm limited with how much I can do. But I'm definitely coming around with that in terms of refusing to let it stop me from getting out of the house and experiencing things, and at the same time, right, and resisting the pressure to do it all. So it's like there has to be a balance, and so that is something like that is a really great. And even just our whole day that we had, I was able to do a lot more than sometimes I think that I'm able to do. And so being able to be out there and seeing Dia was awesome. I was able to feel like my old self and walking around an art museum and walking up and down Main Street. We had so much fun. We had such a great day. And then even just a little bit that I did see of Madame Brett Park, it definitely, living with, chronic pain syndrome type things, it really, you do have to find the balance. So it was great. I think it was all around a great balance and just a great, perfect day. It was
But
great.
that's a really good point. We were joking before we started recording today that when we interviewed Enrica Martin on episode 2, we said, "Hey, what are your favorite places in the Hudson Valley?" And she said, "My couch, my house." And we were like,
And I said, I feel that.
nothing has ever been more relatable because as much as I love to go out and explore things, I mean, being home is its own special kind of thing.
Definitely
And
is.
so for, I don't have physical disabilities, but even so, I'm in my 40s and I'm tired. And the last thing I would ever want is for this podcast or for our Instagram to be another source of FOMO for people, or for us to be like, look at this perfect glossy life that we have going out and doing
Right.
everything cool in the Hudson Valley. Like,
Right.
we're real and we have families and we're tired. And so I think the point is we missed more stuff in Beacon than we saw. And that's okay because we can go back. We don't have to do everything, even to make a podcast. We don't have to go to every place there is to go in Beacon. It's okay to just be like, I'm going to get out and I'm going to explore a few things in the region and not putting all that pressure on yourself to see and do everything and Instagram everything and put filters on everything. So, hopefully this realness resonates with people too.
Yeah, go out there and get a taste of what's out there. Don't hold yourself back. I know I did for a very long time, and I'm ready to start living again and exploring and seeing things. And I think that this podcast for me is a great reason to do that and has brought out a lot in me to be able to say, wait, I can do that. Why haven't I not been doing these things? I can do this. I may not be able to go skiing. I may not be able to do the hikes that I used to do, but I can do a lot of this stuff. And at the same time, like Jen said, it does not mean that anything that you see out there when people are doing that means that like you have to compete or compare yourself to anybody. So everybody's got their own journey, but it is really nice to experience these things though, and just at your own pace and you're on your own journey. So yeah. Well, thank you all so much for listening. We will definitely have more to come of our fun adventures from Jen's visit, but we really hope that you enjoyed watching this episode. If you'd like to help support the Valley Girls, please follow our podcast, leave a rating and review, and share our podcast with others. We really, really appreciate it. To stay up to date with the Valley Girls and for more content, you can find us at valleygirlspodcast.com, and you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Links to all our social media accounts are in the show notes, and you can also connect to them through our homepage at valleygirlspodcast.com. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.
Thank you.